Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, Senior Science Fellow at Nutrien Ag Solutions, and through this video brought to you by Farm Credit Illinois, I want to talk to you about the 2023 growing season, where we're heading during this harvest time period, and what we know about winter. So let's start off with this map here. This is looking at total precipitation ranks by climate district for our growing season. So this is May, the beginning of May, through October the 2nd. And what we're going to be remembering a lot about this growing season was the episodes we saw of dry conditions. And I want to talk to you about the timing of that. Now, I grew up right outside of Springfield, Illinois, in a little town called Rochester, and certainly that's in Farm Credit's territory. So I wanted to show you some of the data from Springfield, just as an example. Now, what you've got here is starting on January 1st, going to the end of the year, what we've seen in terms of precipitation for the last 5 years, which are these lines here, and then this one, which is 2023. Now, I can take those other years off of there. And by the way, you can get all of this information at agweather.com, ag-wx.com. And what we see here is this. Very stormy spring up until May the 10th. And then it all shut down and we got dry until the very end of June, when the derecho came through. July was wet to the end of August. In fact, we were at one point at the beginning of August 11th, we were well above historical averages on precipitation. And then we flatlined as of late. And where do we sit today? At 98.8% of normal precipitation. Now, this is funny because you go look at that stat and you're like, wow, that stat does not capture the variability of this year. And it's certainly not going to tell us what's been going on in this last month, which has driven some of the soil moisture values throughout the Mississippi Basin down to very low levels. In fact, if you look at historical numbers, we're in the second percentile. That's how low it is in terms of 16-inch soil moisture in this area. Now, it has opened up some very early harvest windows that have largely been uninterrupted. We've had some dense fogs. We've had some storms that have come through, but outside of that, we still have some major water issues here in our soil, and we do not want to go into another winter with that being the problem. So we look and see what this is causing issues with, and it's certainly going to be with our major river systems. Down at Memphis, after the Ohio River and the Missouri River get into the Mississippi, we can see that the water levels are 10 feet below low stage. And so this is becoming a major issue with the river and its ability to put grain out and pull barge traffic back up. So this is something that's going to be top of mind for the state of Illinois and our exports as we go forward. Now, we covered the precip. What about the temperature side of things? So I just went back to Springfield because I want to show you something here. Now, when you look throughout this growing season, we really only had 2 episodes, one here and one here. So this is the one that was at the end of July. This is the one that was at the end of August, where it got hot for more than a couple of days. We only had 17 days above 90 for this whole year and no days above 100. And recently, we've had this nice warm stretch of weather here to finish September and start October. In fact, the last week of September to start October was one of the warmest on record. It's a top 5 warmest finish for Illinois to September on record. But of course, it's fall, right? And things are changing. And we're expecting over the next 7 days a good blast of colder air to come down like this, delivering us our first frost everywhere in gray. Now, what will our temperatures get down to here at the end of this first week of October in Illinois? Let's go have a quick look at it. Very warm today on Tuesday morning when I'm recording this. But watch what happens to these temperatures later. Going into Wednesday and Thursday, our first front passes. There it goes. And then the second shot at colder air shows up Saturday morning and Sunday morning. So our temperatures are going to drop about 20 to 25 degrees in those overnight lows, and there could be some patchy frost across parts of the Midwest because of this. It's not a big Arctic outbreak. It doesn't last for very long. In fact, by the time we get into early next week, things start to warm back up. In fact, take a look at this. If you're curious if warmer weather is going to come back in to kind of open those harvest windows back up, there's the cold shot coming through. Then notice what's following it. Mid-October warm up. Now, what we need to see, though, is we need to see these temperatures make their normal fall progression to drop off so that we can get some good fall application done. We also need to think about what that would mean in terms of getting the moisture back in to help out with that. So let's talk about the moisture side of it now that you see that the temperature pattern's on a bit of a roller coaster through the middle of this month. All right, next 10 days, models are not overly generous on the rainfall throughout the Midwest. There's a front that's coming through that's going to deliver some rain, but it's not a soaker. So what do we see going on here? Well, right now, that front here on Tuesday morning was responsible last night on Monday night for lighting up a bunch of storms in the plains. It's going to do it again today on Tuesday. Look at this line of storms expected on Tuesday here. But this front gets to us and it starts to wane a little bit. So we're going to watch out Wednesday afternoon and evening for the risk of some scattered showers and storms. But that front doesn't have quite the strength it could have in winter to really deliver more rainfall. So this will be scattered in nature and not really chase us out of the fields too much. But it's what's on the southern side of it that's going to be interesting to watch for southern Illinois. There's a second wave sneaking in the backside here Thursday getting into Friday, and it may increase some of the rainfall down here in southern Illinois, the risk for it as we work our way into the day on Thursday. So you got a front coming through. This is just the first one coming through on Wednesday afternoon and evening. The second push of rain coming in here on Thursday, and then behind that, that's when the colder air gets into place. Now, when we look at the overall jet stream pattern, I'm going to blow this out. It's got a North American view, and let's flip this map over to showing you anomalies. The pattern is open and moving. There's the big trough that brings in the colder air, but watch, a ridge comes in behind it and warms things back up. But what I love to see about this October is there's no sign of a block. Nothing that's going to either soak us and cause major problems or freeze us out or heat us up. It's regular. That's good. We like to see that. The atmosphere is saying, hey, I've been eating my fiber and we're going to keep moving. And so overall, I like the outlook. So what does that mean? It means we're in this kind of week on, week off pattern as we progress through the middle of this month of October and beyond. Now, we want to look out there at what was coming next. And so what's interesting is the week 2 forecast shown from the CPC here, the European model here, and the GFS here, 3 small maps. But they've been waning on this dryness, which means as we get out there toward the middle of the month, we could start to see our next system come through and deliver the moisture, which means take advantage of the harvest windows when they're open, push hard, get it finished, because we're going to want to use this moisture, revive the soil, get the fall application done, and get ready to get into this winter. Now, what's going to happen in the meantime? Our government released its new forecast for its seasonal drought outlook. Now, this gets us all the way to the end of the year. And they're concerned about areas in through here having drought persist. And that's what's shown to you in this color shading. Their new 1-month forecast for the month of October says expect more mild days than cold, but it's October. There will be times, like you're going to see this weekend, of colder air punctuating this. But this is a very, I would say, El Nino look to a forecast, and I'm not so convinced El Nino is the most dominant factor. In fact, if I had to make an adjustment on this, I would cool more of this off, and I would likely expand the wetter conditions a bit more closer into this area and keep these drier conditions more confined to the east. And my reasoning for that is because in fall, when there's an El Nino, the MJO likes to dip troughs into the west. So the flow likes to come around them like this. And that just helps improve chances of late October rainfall as we work our way into that time period for Illinois. Now, from there, I want to show you a supplemental forecast. This is from the European model. It's going from October 10th to November 10th. And can you see how the model is attempting at better rains in this area? That would indicate that this deeper trough, more energetic pattern could be delivering later, not in the next 10 days, but later in the month, better moisture into this area. Now, I mentioned it a few times, but a lot of this is being controlled by what's going on with El Nino. And since the start of this summer, let's let this restart here. So there we go. Let's go back to July. Watch the development of this El Nino really start to take over through July into August and September. There's a lot of hype about this El Nino. You're probably going to see a lot of articles about it, and I want to temper the reality of it. There's a lot of folks suggesting that this is going to be a big one, but there's not good evidence to support that. Even though some of the government agencies like the Bureau of Meteorology out of Australia are like, oh, crank these ocean temperatures way up here to 2.8 to 3 degrees C above average. The reality is it's probably going to be closer to 2 degrees above average. Now, that's still a moderate strength El Nino, but I don't think it plays, first chair in the orchestra for this upcoming winter pattern. I think it's going to play second fiddle. I think there's going to be sub-seasonal factors that'll get in there and control the weather. And so I want to show you what I think is going to happen. Let's begin first with a composite map. November to March, the cold season. And what I've got here is I've got every time we've had a good El Nino building in that time frame. They're pretty consistent on the dryness here. They're pretty consistent on the dryness in the Ohio Valley. But I want to make some changes to this because this particular flavor of El Nino has not aligned with historical past. What do I mean? Well, we didn't see a shutdown of the hurricane season. There was 18 named systems this summer. We didn't see the big rains all summer long. We saw drought develop south. We saw drought develop Midwest. We saw drought. That's not typical of El Nino. So why would I expect going into winter for it to be typical? This is what I'm suggesting. I think the jet stream is going to be much more variable coming into the Pacific, not doing what it normally does in El Nino, which is to dive in like this. I think it's going to be more variable. I think there's going to be a stronger subtropical component. So we're going to have 2 points of entry for the jet stream this winter. That's going to set off storm systems called panhandle hookers, Arklatex lows. This is called a Miller B and a Miller A. I just put 4 circles around areas where I think lows are going to roll through. Now, that is not a dry signal for the state of Illinois. Could we see, in fact, let me go back and show you this. If I flip this over from precipitation to temperature, could we see more mild days? Watch it reset. There you go. More mild days than cold? Yes. But remember, what gives us our biggest cold air outbreaks? Blocking over Greenland, blocking over Alaska, or a big disruption of the polar vortex. You see, we may have more winter days with mild conditions, which means warmer than average, more of them over the next 90 plus days. But it's the punctuating shots at cold air that we have to pay attention to. What I want to know is how long do we spend with unfrozen soil so that when those storm systems coming from these areas do show up, do they get the moisture back in so that we can recover what was lost here and not start spring with major issues? That's what's going to be key. So that's my outlook for you for this winter. Expect an active winter, not a dry one. I don't think this is going to conform to typical El Nino winter stuff. Okay? From there, I want to give you a quick international perspective. Let me break this map back out to a global view. This is what October, November, December looks like. Now, there's some concern about Brazil monsoon slow. It's not been slow. The wettest conditions have been down here in southern Brazil where there's a lot of flooding that's continuing, and we're seeing near normal planting pace coming out of Brazil. In fact, in some regards, they're above average on planting. They're going to plant 90% of their crop in the next month. Now, if you think about that, remember, last year they added 6 million acres into production. They are not expected to do that this year. They're expected to do less than half of that. That's largely thanks to grain prices. But Brazilian weather, where is it most affected by El Nino? It's not up here. It's actually down here, where we tend to be wetter. Argentina's coming out of a multi-year drought. Southern Brazil's had flooding this spring, and that's something that we're going to have to just keep a close eye on. But I want to take you back to the United States and show you that I think, if I could find North America, there it is. I want to show you what this October, November, December looks like. Now, do you see this? See how they're not going over drier, especially in this area? I think that's going to be key to this upcoming winter. I think this winter is not going to be enjoyable and comfortable, which means it's going to be good for our crops. And that's what I want to see going into spring 2024. So that's my latest update. Hopefully I got it in there fast enough for you. But I hope you all have a good rest of your fall and into winter, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you.